if I only hate half of black people, like, is that like based on their gender? Like that's also still racism?
If they don't have those same views towards other men, right? Like if she hated black men but felt white men were the same and Asian men were the same and Hispanic men were the same and Arab men were the same, etc., then we would be able to say, okay, no, she's just a feminist. But when you say specifically black men, when race is an essential component of the hatred that you're spewing, I think it's fair for us to call it racism. Do you disagree?
Uh, yeah, because like it's more it transcends just race.
Here's what's happening. Um, I'm terrible with time, so I can't tell you when this was, but it was quite a while ago. I had a conversation with a person named Analicia. I was chilling on my stream. Someone came into my stream and said, "Hey, Fanatiq, we really need you to come talk to. We need you to come talk to this person. Like, we really need you." Da 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 da. This girl, she's being really, really black, anti-black, yada 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 yada, and people are struggling. We need your help. And I said, okay. So I went and I listened. I listened for only a very few minutes. And before then, and after that, I finally discovered what she was talking about, and it was awful. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is really gross. So then at this point, I decided I'm going to talk to this person. Now, I didn't witness all of the previous conversations. I'd only heard just like a few minutes of her talking about nonsense and just some of her anti-blackness. So if you'll notice on that video on my channel, I didn't have a lot to say. I didn't really have all of her talking points. I was trying to ask her to speak her talking points so I could actually push back against it. So originally I'm like really, really kind of like tepidly approaching this, right? Where it's like, hey, I don't know exactly what's going on. Like, can you tell me like about your views? And she's like, well, you tell me. What's the problem with my views? And it's like, I don't know. I heard it was kind of anti-black. I'm not sure. Like, cause I didn't really know what she said. That's why I had to be so tepid. So I couldn't push back against very specific things that she said. Upon pushing back, her and I got into the engagement. It went pretty poorly. It went well for me in the sense that I feel like I really expressed myself very clearly and was able to push back against her. But afterwards, later on, people started linking me things about Destiny, saying things like, man, Fanatiq was just coping. It was really, really like, he really didn't push back against the thing that you were saying. Also, while she was like doing the panel, there was a point in time where Destiny had gotten she had these studies that she said would prove her point. And so I was asking her for them. She wouldn't give them to me, but she gave them to Destiny and said, yo, you can read so and so and so and so and so or whatever, right? And so he reads the thing. And then like he's reading it and his chat starts asking him, hey, so is what she's saying accurate? And he goes, like, how good is the study? And Destiny says it's effing useless because it wasn't a study. It was just some random think piece article about ways that black people could improve the way that they look. It was nonsense, and he knew that it had nothing to do with that. And of course, he didn't voice that up. Instead, what he did was he voiced a few grenades. I'm gonna throw a couple grenades your way. Every time I would dunk on her, it would be like, let me throw a couple grenades your way, and tell me how you guys deal with this, right? And each time it was something incredibly antagonistic to black people to bolster her point of view. And then afterwards, to bring her back on and do that was really, really gross. And my primary concern, I'll say, before we get into this, is that I have a problem with someone platforming a person who's incredibly anti-black and then not pushing back against it and saying I can't do so because I'm not black. That was disgusting. We've had conversations in the past about responsible platforming, and that responsible platforming of people that are going to be saying and doing vile things is only responsible if you're willing to push back. If instead you just bring a person on and let them air out all of that nonsense to your audience, you're not platforming responsibly. You're just allowing a person to spew vile hatred. That's never a good thing. So the questions about responsible Destiny was part of that conversation when we talked about responsible platforming, and he indicated that he understood and he agreed with it. It was Destiny, Vosh, myself, and a few others, and they were saying things like, "Hey, well, first off, if you're going on like a big person like Ben Shapiro's stream, you're not platforming him; he's platforming you. But yes, if you are going to be able to push back against those things, then it's probably a good thing because one, you reach their audience, your audience, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of net good from that. But bringing a person on when you're not adequately able to push back against that is irresponsible because all you're doing is exposing your audience to this person's harmful rhetoric while not adequately pushing back. That's what I believe Destiny did, and that was what I considered to be part of the blaxploitation. But this person has a whole bunch of things. I don't know exactly where the conversation will go. I've never spoken to this person before. Let's hope that this conversation can be healthy and reasonable, and yeah, we're going to get into that.
The primary thing I wanted to advocate for is like bridge building and allyship and like just I don't know, like working together with people that have similar goals. Like I feel like both of us probably want the best for historically oppressed and discriminated against communities. I feel like Destiny also fits into that box. I mean, at least way more than like Crowder or Shapiro or Candace Owens or Coleman Hughes or you know, um, and yeah, I guess I feel like there's more to be gained by working with people like Steven than there is to be lost. Um, you know, i- if I just granted everything that you've said about him, like, I don't know, like, like you're giving up like, an audience of thousands of people that at any point you could like hop into the room and start talking about, hey, like, this is affecting the black community and like it's important that people know about it. And I don't
Okay.
know.
What things have I said about him that bother you?
Um, I guess like, yeah, yeah. So like the panel was about his anti-blackness, which I don't, I don't think that given the entire breadth of Steven's content, that like that's a reasonable conclusion. Like I don't know, like do you know who Sapolsky is? He's like a Stanford professor.
Nope.
Has a bunch of free lectures online on YouTube. So like yeah, like uh, Destiny debated a race realist with a PhD in genetics, who uh, has a position of authority. He's just like, yep, I've been studying this for years, and actually, like, you like here's the rank of intelligence by race, and like that's just and yeah, I like was it black exploitation when Destiny spent 20 hours listening to genetics lectures available for free online so that he could debunk a race realist with like a lot of authority ish, whatever. He has like the piece of paper that says like I did a lot of science, and like
Well, no. So
that's
that
some really
wouldn't sound
fucked up
like.
views.
First off, what does it mean for someone to have or demonstrate anti-blackness? What does that mean?
Um, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, I guess having negative feelings or stereotypes or uh, wanting harm to come to the black community. Right,
Hmm.
that's like a
It doesn't have to be
uh,
necessarily intentional, but it could just be actions, right? Like someone could have anti-black actions. Anti-blackness is just something that is negative. I would say that negatively impacts black people. Would we be able to say that's anti-blackness?
um, sure. I think that yeah, I think I can grant that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So then, if it's something that negatively impacts black people, it doesn't have to speak to the person's intentions. It doesn't have to speak to anything really that they previously did or their overall character. Maybe it can be an instance of anti-blackness amongst, a whole bunch of non-anti-black things, right?
Um, yeah, sure.
So then, citing that he spoke to a professor about race realism in defense of black people doesn't necessarily speak against the anti-blackness that I was referring to in that specific instance, right?
Sure. Or, I mean, I guess I don't know. It feels like you've started with a conclusion that um, Destiny's past is checkered with anti-blackness.
Where do
And
you think
like,
I got that feeling from?
I honestly, I don't know. Like, I feel like that Destiny's been a pretty big advocate for black people, as much as she's advocated for, any.
Okay,
Uh,
sure. He's probably spent a great deal advocating for black people. Do you think that it's fair to say that he has done things also that are antagonistic to black people?
well, I mean, sure. I mean, like, have you ever done anything that's antagonistic to black people?
Sure, absolutely. And I would say that in
Sure.
those cases that I probably would like label myself as having internalized racism. In fact, I came forward with the video one time where I was literally speaking about my anti-blackness and my internalized racism that I had to confront in myself. So it seems like I'm fair to myself when I recognize myself doing anti-black things, even though overall my intention is obviously pro-black. I didn't recognize some of the things that I did that was harmful to myself. So I think that if I'm fair enough to assess anti-blackness within myself, despite my overall predisposition, I think that it's probably fair of me to talk about Stephen's anti-blackness as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Um, I guess not necessarily. Like
Okay, tell me
I don't,
what's wrong with what I just said.
cool. Which do you think is a more pressing issue? Like explicit acts of anti-blackness or like oops a daisy accidental acts of
I would
anti-blackness?
imagine I would imagine it depends on the issues that it's coming from and so on and so forth, right? Like maybe like a random 7-year-old with no power whatsoever intentionally doing something anti-black would probably be significantly less harmful than a person with a humongous platform that a lot of people look up to as like the arbiter of social justice accidentally doing something anti-black. Though I don't think that his was an accident. But you understand that it really just there's so many factors that are going to determine whether or not something is harmful or how I'm going to respond to it or what I think is more pressing. Furthermore, I don't
Yeah.
think that me addressing a specific instance means that it is the most pressing. It just means this is something that I'm choosing to deal with or choosing to talk about.
I mean, are you willing to in the future like work with Stephen to further um uh I don't know, black causes? Like I don't know, like would you work with him to like further a political cause and like
Probably not. I think I've attempted to on several occasions, and I feel like, just given the history of our interactions, I've come to the conclusion that he's probably not worth interacting with. So I probably wouldn't want to. No, I have to see no reason to. I mean, obviously things can change, but as it stands now, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything by not interacting with him, and I think I can avoid quite a bit of misery and quite a bit of harm by choosing not to.
um uh, do you support representative democracy?
What does that mean exactly?
Like I don't know, if given the choice of like an authoritarian rule by whoever you're choosing, or like a democratically ish elected government, I don't know.
Yeah, I would
Do you have
probably
a
prefer,
preference between those?
of course, yeah, I'd prefer a democratic
Yeah. I
government.
guess like the like process to accruing political power and enacting meaningful change for the people who need it is necessarily in a representative democracy like an additive process. Like you can't you need to find people you're willing to work with more than you need to cut people out because like if you just keep shrinking the movement um then like nothing's going to change. Things are either going to stay the same or get worse.
Sure, so I can find people to work with, but I don't have to work with Steven, especially given some of the things that he's done that I feel have been disrespectful and antagonistic towards black people. And his unwillingness to truly address any of those things, and his blatant disrespect for me as I've attempted to extend my hand.
Well, I mean, like I don't know, like that's hard for me to accept in good faith, I guess, because like I don't know, you've I don't know, referred to him as racist on more than one occasion. Like you feel like you'd have like demonstrated that like it's like oh like Analicia was on a couple of times and he also critiqued some of my arguments, and so therefore like
I
you
feel like
know
that's a very reductive way of referring to the things that I've done. First off, in that panel that we're discussing right now, I did not refer to him as racist, did I?
not in that panel, no.
Had I ever called him racist before then?
I think so. Like, I feel like before y'all had like the I don't know if it was like your studio, but you had like the Ask Fanatic thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? Like you talked about like the whatever the N-word debate and the Bill Cosby thing, right? Those two videos, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Prior to that, no, I
yeah,
had
I
not.
feel like in between like that panel where, you said that like you wouldn't date a non-black woman, and like then like you might have called him racist. I don't know. I don't have receipts for that. I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry. I'm dumb.
It's okay. The
Sorry.
answer is no. I never called him racist prior to that.
Okay. What emboldens you to call him like racist? Like he just has done enough anti-blackness to like cross the threshold that like, you know.
I think some of his actions are what I think would end up creating great harm towards black people and I think he's irresponsible with his platform towards a predominantly white group of men, right? And I think that his inability to actually be corrected or chastised, and I would say like that anti-blackness that I'm referring to through some of his actions, those things are racist. Do I think that Destiny overall is a necessarily racist person? Probably not. Do I think that he probably has some implicit biases and things like that? Absolutely. I think they're not even that implicit. I think some of them are explicit from the conversations that I've had with him. So I think, and maybe sometimes when I'm getting very upset, lately, considering the harassment and things that I got from DGG and some of the harm that happened to my platform as a result of cutting ties with Destiny, I think maybe I've probably called him racist maybe 2 or 3 times. But I don't think overall, I don't think that it's unfounded considering the anti-blackness that we spoke about in that panel.
I guess I don't know. I don't. It's a lot of things that were brought up in that panel were like STD fill or sorry, wait, is it it's STP or is it STD? I'm sorry.
STV Philly.
STV. Oh Jesus, I was all right. Sorry.
It's all good.
STV Philly. I don't know. I feel like offered like several substantial points, and like I don't know. There were a few times you were just like, well, like I don't really want to argue about this, so
Yeah.
like it's just like obvious, like I want an opposing voice here to like say that I had an opposing voice here, but at the end of the day, like Steven's like done enough anti-blackness to be racist.
That wasn't my take in that panel originally. It took me a while to come to that conclusion. So in that
Yeah.
panel, I specifically did not call him racist. And specifically, when someone said something about him being racist, I said I specifically have not called him racist. So I didn't make that I didn't say that during that panel. And while STV Philly was on there, and it seemed like what he was doing was particularly just being charitable towards Destiny because he had an interaction with Destiny before that stream and before he had that interaction with Destiny, him and we had spoken a little bit and we were talking about what we obviously understood to be some of the harm from what Destiny was doing. And it seemed like after interacting with Destiny and once going on the air that to me, he suddenly decided, this might not be a good idea. At least that's the way it felt at the time. I don't know what his actual motivations were. I just know that there was a clear distinction from the conversations that we had and the indication of what exactly we would be doing, and then the way that he composed himself within that conversation. And that to me was rather offensive, but I did not want to have a big old debate stream while you have 4 people present, so that's why I didn't want to debate about any of those things. But if you feel like any of his pushback was actually adequate, then or you feel like those points were actually relevant, you can voice them yourself. I have all the time today. I'll discuss any of them with you.
Um, for sure. I guess okay. So before we get too deep into that, do you think Steven has done any good for the black community?
Of course. I think like probably what launched him into the debate sphere was him debating against crazy white supremacists, and I think those things were really positive.
For sure. I guess like I don't know, like where is like the tipping point for you? Like how much anti-blackness do you need? Like is it like an absolute amount? Like is it like a ratio of like harm versus good? Like just like roughly like whatever. Like trying to be like very specific, but just I don't know. I'm curious on where that line is for you. Where
I don't think a
like
ratio
like
is
like
required in order for me to label an action as anti-black.
is, or I guess like how do we get from anti-black to racist?
I think those two things can be interchangeable, but I would say that the reason why I referred to him as anti-black and not racist originally, because as I said before, his actions were things that were I believe were just harmful towards black people, incredibly harmful. And I think that for him to continue that pernicious behavior was something that I wanted to stop. And it was also something that I wanted people to recognize so that they would stop looking towards this man as somebody who is actually positive or beneficial for black people overall, given how frequently he had allowed all of this nonsense.
I mean, do you think if you like took the good that Destiny's done for the black community and subtracted the harm, that it would be like a negative value?
I'm not sure. I don't know how to evaluate all of those things. I think there's too many different interactions and so on and so forth for me to be able to like calculate something like that. But what I can
Okay, so
do
like
is
what
just point
is
out an instance of anti-blackness and focus on that during the time when I think it's harmful, and that's what I did.
um yeah, all right. I mean, so one of the things I feel like you kind of misrepresented him on was the responding like I can't answer that because I'm white, um, which like wasn't or yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of missing context there to where Analicia provided some data. Destiny explained why it was like not important or couldn't be used like that, and then she would have like a counter to that, and then you know um, you know whatever. After some back and forth, it just ends in like a, well, I'm a black woman, and you don't know what it's like to date as a black woman because you're a white male. Um, and uh,
During the
I
time when she said some of her vile things, did Destiny respond that he couldn't respond because he was not black? Did he ever make that statement?
did you hear what I just said? Like yes,
I
in
did hear what you
response to
said clearly.
like those sorts of arguments of like I don't know, like someone is weaponizing like their identity
Hmm.
to say like, oh hey, like you're wrong because you're the wrong race or gender or like whatever.
Sure.
Like I'm a
Have you ever heard Destiny address that type of argument before?
um here and there.
And normally his stance
It's
is what?
it shouldn't matter. However, like I don't know,
Absolutely.
in the age of like critical theory, like I don't know, like lived experience is supposed to matter, and like I am someone who values like self determination. So like I don't know, I like at least need to like listen to someone who claims to have an amount of experience or authority, like and can um and, and like put forth like arguments that need to be dismantled. Uh,
Absolutely. So then that means previously, whenever he encountered these types of arguments, he's always hand waved and dismissed them and called them cringe and said it's ridiculous to think that because you're black that you're allowed to talk about things that I can't, and to think that you have some sort of insight, special insight that gives you like the ability to talk about things that I don't, and that to dismiss someone's opinion because they're not part of that in group is absolutely ridiculous. Yet, here we have a situation where he's talking to Analicia, and multiple times he's citing that for his reason for why he's not able to push back or why he feels uncomfortable pushing back. Am I
I mean,
wrong about this?
I mean, not necessarily, but like I feel like the argument of like you're wrong because you're not black, like is invalid in most instances. But like I don't know, when we're talking about the black community at large, like I don't know, like there's no like if I want to know like what it's like to date as a black woman, like like I can't Google that. Like there's no published research about that. Like I have to ask black women what it's like,
Her
right? Or
arguments,
like, or
but
is there
her
a
the majority of her arguments weren't just about specific personalized lived experience. If you remember, she appealed repeatedly to the fact that she had data and that no men could contend with the data that she was presenting, and she was trying her best to pretend as if her argument was founded upon data and upon facts as opposed to the subjective lived experience that she herself had. If you remember from the very beginning of the conversation, she was saying she did not want the conversation to be personal, and that black men, when having these conversations with her, start engaging in personal attacks. That's what she said. So then if that's the basis for your argument is supposedly data, but the data that you're providing is garbage, yet some sort of way Stephen is walking away from the conversation believing that he's not allowed to push back because he's not black, then it seems like he's contradicting himself from all of the various criticisms that people have thrown his way for him being so passive when it came to pushing back against her. And it seems like also that would be a validation of all of the other idiots who have been talking to him and saying that he doesn't have a right to speak about these things, considering the fact that he's not black. You cannot at one point say, I don't think that that's a valid argument, and then simultaneously use that multiple times and allow a person to spew vile anti-black racism over your platform.
I mean, I feel like he pretty adequately dealt with like the misinterpretations of data. I don't know. I guess like that's the hard thing to contend with, is that like she strung together a narrative and like this like crazy conspiracy, and like, you know, it was like, oh, like actually like women in general are outperforming men, like just full stop, like no matter what your race is. And like, so that like explains most of the gap between like, you know, the advancement of black women compared to black men.
I'm not
Yeah.
understanding. Wait. How does that address what I just said, though?
Um. Sorry, you're talking about. Uh. I. He was contending with the data. I'm giving one of the explanations that he didn't give, I guess. But like, I. What?
Wait. So you're
What?
giving an explanation that he didn't give, but he didn't do that on his
I'm
platform
giving
himself.
a different interpretation of like a conversation that happened months ago. But like also like he said, I don't know. Have you watched this conversation with the angry man? Um,
I don't
where
have to
like,
in order to critique his performance in this individual conversation. Those two,
oh,
that's completely extraneous.
okay, so like your entire contention with Steven is that like you don't feel like he pushed back enough, because like even though he responded to the data and like was looking through the studies live and like trying to like disassemble her arguments with like errors in the methodology, and like, you know, like she had a whole prepared like thing,
That
like,
he
you know,
inadequately pushed back against. Yes, that was my critique. That's what that panel was about. It wasn't about
like
his
now, but
anti-blackness
like,
overall. That it was about that. That's what it was.
okay, so you're like limiting the scope to like two conversations, and you're just like, well, I don't need to look at anything else from him because like on this period he was way too anti-black, and therefore
I don't
like
need to look at
fuck him.
anything else for him if I'm trying to evaluate that specific conversation. Any of the other extraneous things that you would like to introduce have nothing to do with this specific conversation, and so they don't invalidate what my evaluation of this conversation. Do you understand? Now, you
I,
can point to a billion other things that he's done that are great and so on and so forth, but none of that matters, like unless they're directly tied in some sort of way to this specific conversation, because that's what my critique was about. I wasn't critiquing Destiny as a whole, as a person. It was specifically this conversation.
I, I just don't under. I get that you're fixated on, it's like, oh well, like this is just criticisms about this conversation, but like that is informing your opinion of Steven at large. But like you don't care about
No,
anything else that's been going on.
no, it's
Like it's
not.
just like, nope, like, you know, like he is imperfect. So
No, it's not informing
um,
my opinion of Stephen as a whole. It's informing my opinion about that specific conversation. Now, I have other things that I could probably refer to talk about Stephen's character as a whole, but that's not what I was doing there. That panel was specifically about those interactions. That's the only public thing that I had pretty much done about Stephen up to that point. And that's the thing that you had exception with. So why are you now pivoting to something extraneous?
or I'm not pivot, or so like I guess like I don't know, like as I said in the beginning, I'm here to try to advocate for bridge building, and like, I think good things could be done with you working with Steven, more than harm that can be done. But like, um, sorry, I'm a little spacey. I it just it feel like you mischaracterized him in that panel, and like you're
Which part?
critiquing yeah, I don't know, just like the how would you define exploitation?
I think exploitation is just the manipulation of anything for one's own gain, possibly to the detriment of the others or to the thing being manipulated. I would consider that to be exploitation, or probably just manipulation of something uh, that doesn't necessarily benefit the other person. But I don't subscribe to proprietary definitions. Let me look it up and find out exactly what that word means.
For sure. Yeah. I guess like I'm trying to get like a functional definition that like I can like, I don't know. I understand what like black exploitation is. Black exploitation. I don't know if there's whatever. Black exploitation sounds funner to say, to be honest. No,
Hmm.
that's okay.
Sure. So it basically says uh, to make use make use of meanly or unfairly for one's own advantage, which is kind of basically what I was getting at.
For sure. I, I don't know. Do you think black issues are worth talking about?
Sure.
Um, I,
So,
I
are you
don't
going
know.
to ask me why I was calling it black exploitation, or do you
Yeah.
come?
I mean, yeah. I guess like you. Yeah. You made a historical reference, but didn't like, I don't know, substantiate what you meant by that, I think.
Sure.
Or
So, let's go within the definition. It's to make use of something specifically for one's own advantage, right? And I think that's what
mhm.
Stephen was doing. And the reason why I feel like he was doing that was because I think the things that she was saying to his incredibly white audience were incredibly harmful for black people. And I think she was doing it from a place of quote unquote authority because she was a quote unquote black woman. And so then I think for her to use that appeal to authority to spew anti-black vile racism, I think that to me was harmful. I believe that Stephen, having her come onto his platform, knowing that she would be saying and doing those incredibly awful things, I think that that becomes exploitative. Once he decides that he's going to stream these things multiple times irresponsibly, then I think that obviously he gets the gains because those streams were incredibly popular during that time. But the harm happens to black people. And so to me, that is exploitation. Which part of that do you disagree with?
um, I don't feel like Steven's manipulating stuff. Like, I mean, I'm sure he's
Wait,
aware
no.
that
Was he
it's like,
using? Using. Was he using it?
well, like, if a white person designs a logo for BLM and sells it to them at
Uh,
like way below market
Please answer the
value, are they
question. Was he using it
using it for what? I mean,
for a bigger stream or for
uh,
content?
I mean, like primarily, like not necessarily. Like, I mean, I think he cares about black issues, and like this isn't,
But was it
you know,
used to generate content?
um, I mean, if you want to be that reductive about it, like he did it and it was content, yes. Like I don't know how I can disagree with like I don't. You're begging the question with that statement, or I
Okay.
guess like
Okay, then good. Then it shouldn't probably have to be explained. Sure, so I don't have to beg the question. We both know, yes, he did use it for content. My estimation is that it is incredibly harmful to black people considering the fact that all of that vile anti-black racism was spewed on his platform without adequate pushback. So, then it's harmful to the individuals who were supposed to be on his platform to engage in this content, and he's generating positive growth from this content. It was obviously incredibly attractive. His numbers were doing quite well during that time, and I think it was obviously harmful to black people to have that sort of nonsense spewed on his platform without adequate pushback. So it seems like, by definition, that would be black exploitation. If you disagree with that, tell me which of those two things you disagree with.
Obviously harmful. Like on like a.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I guess like you say, obviously harmful. As someone who's part of this community, like I don't know, like Destiny's, like black demographics have like spiked as of the past, I don't know, 6 to 8 months. Like he's attracted a lot of I don't know, he's been interacting a lot with the WL community, like Aiden Ross, Gideon. I don't think he's talked to Kai or Speed, but like
sounds exactly like what I'm talking about. And it seems like so now he effectively increased his platform, reached out to a brand new audience, and did so by first bringing on a vile anti-racist who spewed utter nonsense about black men.
I mean, yeah, like he does that like like with a lot of different people. Like he brings on transphobes, he brings on racists, like he brings on misogynists, like he brings on red pill. Like
so then,
like yeah.
So you don't disagree with me then? It was black exploitation by definition.
No, I do disagree because like I think he adequately pushed back, and I don't think you can like I don't think you can demonstrate that it was obviously harmful to black people. That,
I can demonstrate it by his own words.
The anti-blackness that was like being spewed is is all that is worth considering. When it comes to like the larger picture and like future conversations that he's had.
So you disagree with Destiny, where Destiny himself said, I don't feel comfortable pushing back because I'm not black and I'm not part of that in community. So if he recognizes that he was uncomfortable and not adequately pushing back, I think it's ridiculous for you to basically disagree with me, as I agree with his own words and obviously in my own independent assessment.
Can you cite me that like can you like send me the link to where Destiny said that, or like reference me to like where I could find
I probably would have been able
that
to
very out of context clip.
I would be able to do that if it wasn't for the fact that he deleted the video, but he did make that statement multiple times. I've said that quite a few times previously during this very conversation. If you didn't agree with that or didn't believe that actually occurred, why did you wait till now to contend with it?
I pushed back on that like way before. Like I said that like, oh hey, like you keep saying that like, oh, I can't answer this because I'm white, and like that was in response to a very specific argument that like there is no like other intention, or like there is no path forward on like except for just devaluing the lived experience of like black people and women and both.
Okay. So I don't know. I probably could find some sources if I was given some time to do so, but I don't think that it's necessary. I mean, ultimately, I know that he said it. I think you know that he said it. As you already said, you're justifying one of the times that you believe he said it, but he said it multiple times. So then that means, again, if he's saying that for this reason, because of him not being part of that in-group, that he can't push back, then that means now that some of the nonsense that she was spewing was not adequately pushed back against. Furthermore, when I was adequately pushing back against her, for him to then the next day say, Fanatiq was just coping and he wasn't really contending with your points, and so far it seems like you're right multiple times, I think that that's pretty, it's a validation of the anti-black racism that she was spewing.
I feel like I didn't get a good answer to my question I asked a while ago.
I'm sorry, ask it again, please.
Yeah, sorry. So, do you think explicit racism, or like unconscious or unintentional or implicit racism, like which one of those do you think faces is a bigger threat to the black community?
I did answer this question earlier, and I would say that it depends on the size and the power of the individual who is doing the racism, and so I would think there are plenty of factors that can determine how harmful it is.
Can we not zoom out to like a societal or I mean like in your day-to-day life, what poses more of a danger to you, like explicit or implicit? And like, I don't know, like
Wait,
if
so
we
you
were to
want me
look
to
at
answer the
other,
question without context?
I mean, everything else is just extraneous details. Like, I don't know, I'm trying to talk about this.
These are not extraneous. These are literally directly related to whether or not this thing would be harmful. You're asking me to evaluate which one of these things is more harmful, and I'm saying that it depends on the power level of the individuals who are doing it. How is that extraneous?
Um, because I'm talking about like the average like lived experience of like a person, and like you're like, oh, well, like I need to know every individual
I
like
didn't say
instance
anything
of the
close to
power
that.
differential.
No, I'm not saying I need
Or
to know
oh, I'm
every
sorry,
ind.
then like I think I misunderstood. Can you say that again then?
I'm sorry. It depends on the
Sorry, never
power
mind.
level of the individual who is doing the racist thing. And I think I went on to explain. So if you had like an overtly racist 7-year-old, I think that that would probably be less harmful than an implicitly racist president. So then in that case, then the power levels of these two people are incredibly different. And so in that case, then obviously you would need to be evaluating the power levels and the ability to cause harm by these individuals in order to determine which one of these things is more harmful. I don't think that implicit racism is inherently softer or less pernicious than overt racism, because actually overt racism could allow you to actually confront it more. But again, it all depends on the power levels of the individuals and what they're using their racism to do, or the
Okay.
systems or whatever. So there is no easy answer to that. But what I would say is it depends on the power level and probably the degree of harm that will be caused by both of these things if unaddressed.
Okay. So you can't like even give an estimate of like, well, I think overt racism is like probably 80%, the problem, and implicit's closer to 20, like,
The problem for
on
what? What do you mean for like for what am I evaluating exactly? I don't understand.
uh, anti-blackness. Where do you think the majority of or how do you think the majority of anti-blackness is occurring? Is it explicit acts or
Oh,
is
I
it
would say
unconscious?
nowadays it's significantly more implicit than like crazily explicit stuff. Right now, yeah, for sure. You would agree with that, right?
No, no, I would not actually.
So you think the majority of racism is like overt, like acts of like people shouting the N-word and doing racist acts, as opposed to the implicit biases that like persist within people nowadays?
Yes.
So if we were to poll the average American right now, you think the average American would probably say something about the idea that like they would probably admit to being openly racist?
I well, actually, probably most of them would now with like the proselytizing with the implicit association test. But I think there's some issues with
In
the
tooth
methodology there.
in 1995, do you think that the average American would have mentioned that they were overtly racist?
I don't understand like the relevance of this question.
I'll explain it
does
after you ask
someone
it.
being
It's a leading question. Can you answer that question for me? You don't need to understand why I'm asking it yet. I'll break it down to you after you answer it. Do you think that the average person in 1995 would answer the question if they were racist that they were overtly racist at all?
do you,
Do you think the average American would view themselves as overtly racist in 1995?
well, okay, those are two very different
That
questions.
was the original question I asked. I just reworded it. But it's okay. With the
No,
average
no, no,
it's okay.
no,
I'll
no,
ask the
no, no.
very specific
So
question once again. Please just answer it. Would the average American in 1995 say that they were overtly racist?
say that they were okay. Would they openly admit to being racist? Probably not. Is that a necessary condition for someone being overtly racist? I would say also no.
Okay.
Would they view themselves as racist is a whole other like question, which is like how you reworded it, which is like I don't know. Like I feel like it's a very different path. Sorry.
Okay.
But like I don't think that like racism is measured in like how explicitly you say out loud that you're racist.
No,
Um,
racism is measured because racism is a belief system, right? And we don't have a way of absolutely knowing whether or not a person is racist because racism is literally a belief system, right? It is the belief that there are inherent values by different people that cause that cause them to act in superior or inferior ways. That is what racism is. I can't know that someone believes that. It's even really difficult for me to tell that from someone's actions. The only thing that I can do is probably give good estimations based off of the actions that these would align with that type of belief system, and then therefore go off of that. Because it's almost impossible to know for sure the motivations of an individual. It's almost impossible. So then if that's the case, then that means that I would never be able to call any person racist for any reason, because any person could then justify or argue why they did an incredibly racist thing, which clearly indicates that they have that belief, and they can try to argue around it. And I have no way of arguing, obviously better than they can, about what their underlying motivations are. So you see, it's really difficult to point out racism, like to know it for sure, which is why more often than not, you're going to have to just judge the actions of an individual as opposed to their underlying mindset, because you can rarely know it.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to like somehow extrapolate like mens rea from like actions that you're interpreting, and like I don't know. I just
We do that all the time in the court system, don't we?
um
That's how we determine first degree
not
versus second degree
not
versus
the.
third degree.
I mean, I feel like you're equivocating here. Um,
What do you
so
mean?
no, I,
Wait,
I
equivocating? What do you mean?
I think you keep like swapping out like words for words, where it's just like I don't know, like racism becomes like anti-blackness becomes like like just something else, and like I, I don't know, you just
Okay, explain to me which part that I said. Do you feel like I'm just? I'm lost.
you're telling me it's almost impossible for you to
Okay,
know
okay,
whether or not
yeah. Just to be clear. Do we do that in the court system?
um like demonstrate intent,
Yes,
like
based off of people's actions and the surrounding circumstances.
um yeah, with a lot of circumstantial evidence and like a lot of substantial proof, like sure.
Okay, and so I'm saying that's the
Not
only.
just like a single conversation and like
Of course not.
declaring someone an anti-black vile like piece of subhuman trash.
Okay, but I
And
didn't say all
like
that. I didn't say all that, did I?
I'm sorry, vile anti-black.
I said Analicia was. Oh, for sure. And I think,
Yeah, yeah,
given the
yeah, yeah,
degree of the
yeah. That's who
conversation
I'm.
and the things that she spewed out, do you feel like that's not that she didn't say enough there to demonstrate vile anti-black racism?
No, I mean, she was pretty like, I mean, I- obviously mis misandrinoir, which is a word I had to look up because of her. But like I don't know, like she has intersectional bigotry. It's crazy. Like she doesn't,
Exceptional
you know.
bigotry means like intolerance towards like another person, right? And that intolerance that she was talking about was a bigotry towards specifically black men. So then
Yeah.
obviously, and she thought that there was something inherently racist or inherent about black men that was making them this way. So clearly then that means that that would be racist, right? And if you're
Well, I
anti-black
mean,
man,
does it?
wait, hold on. If you're anti-black man, then that sounds like anti-black is valid there. If you're vile because of all of the absolute disgusting atrocities that you're spewing and the negativity with which you spew all that stuff, that sounds like that would be vile by definition, and you're clearly racist by definition because you inherently think that black people or black men specifically are just these weak and whatever other things that she was saying. So by definition, then you agree that she is both she is anti-black, vile, and racist. Or you're going to say it was bigoted, but not racist? No, you're equivocating.
No, I mean, I'm trying to be specific here. Like she doesn't hate all black people. Like she like is prejudiced towards black men, like
That's
specifically.
what I said.
But like so if I only hate half of black people, like is that like based on their gender? Like that's also still racism?
Okay,
Like
wait.
that doesn't.
So wait, let me just ask you to make sure that we're understanding here. You're
Yeah.
saying a person could hate all black men but not black women, and that would not be racist?
I mean, that would be closer to like misandry than racism. Like I would say, like I would have some questions for that person about
But
like, hey, like you have probably some fucked up ideas, obviously, but like.
So wait, hold on. So you're saying if they don't have those same views towards other men, right? Like if she hated black men but felt white men were the same and Asian men were the same and Hispanic men were the same and Arab men were the same, etc., then we would be able to say, okay, no, she's just a feminist. But when you say specifically black men, when race is an essential component of the hatred that you're spewing, I think it's fair for us to call it racism. Do you disagree?
Yeah, because like it's more it transcends just race. Like it's race and gender. Like it's like yeah, I don't know. It I don't think it's racist and sexist. Like I think it's like something that overlaps between those, but like not quite both or either.
Okay,
Makes sense?
so I guess that's where the substantive difference is between our positions. I feel like for a person to say all black men are trash, I think that that person is racist. And I think that they are anti black. And I think that that is vile. And I think that she did that. So if you disagree with that, I'm not going to argue with you over those words. We're just going to have to move past that. But that's why I use those phrases. And I think that I was well founded in making those statements based off of the arguments that she gave.
Yeah, I have absolutely no interest in defending her. Like she is, I 1,000% agree with you, is vile and gross, and like, I think she was like playing a character, like for I don't know, internet fame, um, and like it took a minute to like I don't know, get her shut down, but like, I- um, but like yeah, I guess
Do you think if I made the statement that all white women have dirty feet, stinky hair, and that they're whores with no body, do you think that that would be racist?
I mean maybe like I would have to ask some more questions about that.
What questions would you need to ask for clarification there?
I mean, like, I guess I would need a reference point for like I don't know. Do you just hate all women, or is it just like literally every
Nope, it's
other?
just the white ones. I don't think that black women. I think black women have beautiful bodies and their hair doesn't stink and their feet aren't dirty.
I mean, and you treat white men exactly the same as everyone else.
Sure.
I mean, that's like weird. I don't know. Like that's hard to answer personally because like you only hate like half of a race, and like there's another like qualifier there. Like I don't know. Like if I put a white person in front of them, like they, there's like a 50-50 chance that they would hate them, just based on kind of their skin color, but also their gender. Does that make sense? Like, see what I'm saying?
I think, I, th- I hear it. I just disagree with it. Like, I think adding additional factors onto something doesn't invalidate that it's still like that root thing. In other words, if I'm saying this guy is racist, right? Like, because the racism is constrained to only one half of the gender, I don't understand how we're going to deny the racism there.
I like yeah, race is a necessary component, but it's not like sufficient. In and of itself, it's race and gender. Like you can't if I like she's misandrous and racist and but not quite either. Like she's the intersection of those things, which like doesn't I don't know any black person or any man that I put in front of her has like a percentage chance that she's gonna be like, oh no, like they're fine.
No, no, but it's all of them. If she, do you
Yeah,
feel
but
like
like
from her? I don't
there needs to be
understand.
like a better term for and there is one. It's misand noir.
No, it doesn't,
Like
because misogynoir doesn't actually consider race. Just like misogynoir has nothing to do with race. Misogynoir is something where we would say that it's just, oh, like you're antagonistic towards women, doesn't it?
no, like I think the noir at the end of misandry or misogyny like qualifies it to be specifically against black people. So like there's
Oh,
like
okay. Then maybe I
trans
misunderstood that.
misogynoir, which is like the specific issues facing like black trans women. But like yeah, like that noir suffix like is like means towards black people and like
I did not know that. Then that's my fault.
yeah.
Um,
Hey, no worry.
Let me look it
Listen,
up just to be
it took
sure.
me yeah, for sure.
Sure.
Um,
Okay. Sure.
yeah, yeah. Listen, dude, it took me unironically like 6 months to find that word because I'm like, dude, there's got like someone has to have like written about this already, and like yeah,
And you would
it
say that
existed.
that's not racist because it's only constrained to a specific sex.
I I mean like based on like the racial identity of someone alone, we cannot determine whether or not this someone would be explicitly bigoted towards them.
Wait, say that one more time?
Like like race isn't enough. Like it's a necessary but not sufficient component. Like race alone isn't enough to predict this person's actions or behavior. Like you need another filter there in order to like get an accurate like if we made a scatter plot of like just like how bigoted is this person towards this person and like marched random white, black, women, men towards them. Like how could we accurately predict? Like I don't know. Like race doesn't do it.
Okay, well, so look, here's where we're going to run into a big problem. For me, I think it's very painfully obvious for a person to say that black men are the source of all of these problems and yada, 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 but not feel the same way about white men or anyone else. Then obviously I would say that race is an essential component. And so because race is an essential component, I have no problem calling it racist. Now, you can zoom in a little bit and say that the racism is constrained to just black men and not white men, but clearly there's a racism there. She believes that the race of the black men creates a very specific factor or a very specific outcome that makes them inherently inferior to other men. That was her belief system. I don't really want to spend too much more time arguing the absolute anti-black vile racism of her. Now, if you want to instead refer to it as misogynoir, right, that's your prerogative. And obviously, I think that obviously applies, but I'm not going to argue that much further. I'm sorry. So then let's go ahead and
Yeah,
move
yeah, for
forward.
sure.
So then
Yeah, yeah.
obviously I feel like, and I don't even think the distinction makes a difference because guess what? If she's doing that thing, then I think that Stephen has a responsibility to adequately push back against that, and he didn't do it.
I mean, yeah, I guess I would disagree. I don't. Sorry, I I didn't quite write out like specific things where you're like, oh, this is something you didn't push back against enough. But like, I don't like you're critiquing a single conversation and not looking at anything he's done since.
Oh, I can look
Can I
at plenty of
pivot
things that
real
he's
quick?
done since and before, but that evaluation on that panel was constrained to just that instance, and it was enough.
Okay, so like yeah, like it just takes like one bad conversation
For
and
me to
like
label that
just
specific conversation, because again, that conversation wasn't about the panel wasn't
I'm
about.
sorry. Do you think that Stephen harbors a gratuitous amount of anti-blackness,
I would
or was
say
it just restrained to that conversation?
I would say yes.
Okay, so then like I don't know why you keep specifying it like, oh no, I'm just like
Because the
analyzing
thing that
that
we're discussing right
conversation.
now is that panel. That's why.
Okay, so do we only want to talk about the panel? Are we not allowed to talk about anything else?
So then, if you
Like,
want to
I
move the
guess.
conversation to other things, then we can do so. But right now, the things that we've been talking about are that panel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like. There's like a few parts of that panel where like you literally just said like, I don't want to argue about my position. I just want to say it and have like a
As I
you know
told you earlier when you made that statement, if you have any specific things that you feel like needed to have been discussed, you're the one that has notes. I'm willing to talk them out with you now. I explained to you that I did not want that panel to be some cantankerous conversation between STV Philly and myself while there were two other people present, and the idea was to express opinions. Now, I disagreed with him several times and said I would not argue with him there because that was not the purpose of that panel. But I told you I have all the time today if you would like to discuss any of those things. I'm available to do so now. So since you have your notes, tell me the things that I was unwilling to contend with, and I'll do so right now.
um Do you think there's value in like dismantling anti-blackness?
Of course.
Um, where where would you draw the line on like I don't know like how much anti like vile anti-blackness is someone allowed to spew before like you would cut them off? Um,
I don't know that there's a specific quantity. I just know that if somebody demonstrates a considerable amount, like, and I got obviously going to be incredibly subjective. It's just once I see someone as being really harmful, then it's probably going to be something I'm going to either want to correct, and if it seems like it can't be corrected, I'm just going to distance myself from it.
sure, so it's all just like a subjective like know it when you see it
I would think
type
so.
thing.
I would think so, but I think it's also measurable in some ways too.
Like in what way? Like yeah, like I guess in what ways are you analyzing this? Like
Well, for me, I would look at it like, again, do I view it as something that's incredibly pernicious? And for Destiny, it felt like it's pernicious because of the fact that I know that his white audience doesn't have very many interactions with black people, and not black people who are capable of properly representing like some of the things that she was talking about within her argument. And I think that I was one of the people that was capable of doing so. And so for me, I feel like it was important to speak out against all of the nonsense that she was saying, and I did so. And upon doing so, then immediately you when Destiny goes on his next day and says Fanatiq is just coping, and I don't think that he actually had good arguments, etc., 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 I think it's validating of her position, and I think that her positions were disgusting.
yeah, I mean I think Destiny is looking for the strongest argument against it. I think Destiny
I gave
said
it.
you were coping about yes, I think you did. I agree. Like I think you did just as much as Tree did, just as much as Abbott did. Like I feel like all of you
They
like
were not
put forth
equal.
a very sure, I guess like I didn't quantify it. Like it was just like a I don't know. It was really cool to see like all of those people like fucking Voltroning together to like no
We
like
weren't
we need to
Voltroning
crush
together.
this racist.
We weren't Voltroning together. Abba was antagonistic towards it. When I was having the conversation with her, the reason why I cut the conversation short was because Abba came on there and started memeing at the end of it because he wanted to really just kind of focus on some of her antagonism towards him. They weren't
But
equal. I don't think Gideon,
dude,
myself, or Abba were at all equal in our ability to do so.
sure. Like I'll even. I mean, I don't think I have anything to lose by granting you that. I think everyone. I, I don't know. I don't. Here's the hard thing to balance. I guess is like she's like a bad faith actor. Like obviously, like she's not there to listen. Like she just doesn't care about having her mind changed. Like she's there to push a thing, and you know,
And so
like
we should
that's
be there to push
whatever.
back against it if we're trying to fight against it, right? And I feel like I did
Yeah.
that, but the others did not. Not
I
adequately.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Destiny counteracted the data, like didn't release the big like research doc of just like, here's a bullshit ass like QAnon tiered narrative about like why black men are like the worst and
In real
I
time,
don't know.
as she spewed the nonsense, Destiny allowed it, and he let it keep going.
Is that did you not say the first time that you talked to her you didn't say much because you were trying to like process like what she was saying?
No, I've only interacted. The very first time I talked to her was the time where I pushed back the strongest against her. The next time it was on a panel. I've only interacted with her twice. One time was because of the fact that it was a conversation, the one that's on my YouTube, where I pushed back extensively. The second one
Hmm.
was on a panel where I didn't feel like I could adequately push back because Tree of Logic got involved and did a bunch of nonsense, and there were too many people, and so we weren't adequately able to make those points, and so then that was where I said, okay, I'm not doing this again.
I mean, like I like Analicia got like we were just getting dogpiled and trashed in that like conversation. Like I don't like I'm trying to imagine someone walking away from any of the Analicia conversations like, oh, like she's right, like with just like five people like presenting like
Well, but
very
Destiny said that after she debated the first four. Before I came on the stream, he said, and I quote, "Well, I guess you are right. You said that people wouldn't be able to push back, and so far they haven't." He was
no,
validating her points.
dude, she called out like like he brought in some people who should not have been brought in. Like she literally called out like someone just like they're just gonna say, oh, who hurt you? Oh, like that's why you're acting like this, and like I like.
So then, do you think
I
that
mean,
Destiny contributed to the harm by bringing these people on to have the represent those arguments, so that it looks like this person does actually have valid points that aren't able to be contended with, and to actually validate the point that black men don't know how to contend with their points, but only know how to get personal, despite all of the vile, disgusting things that she was saying that were incredibly pernicious and incredibly toxic, while she was being really, really out of pocket and out of character? And so you're going to hold black men to this standard that they're not supposed to be personally offended and emotionally invested in something that is so insidious and so vile, while simultaneously steel manning it and saying, well, I guess you're right, people can't contend with that, while ignoring the emotional component of the disgusting nature of all the things that she's saying. Yeah, that was harmful. And Destiny did that. So you agree that all the other people that had came on that panel prior to me were not adequately able to handle it. So then it was incredibly irresponsible for him to platform this person, not push back himself and say, I'm going to let black men do it, and then not bring on the proper black men to be able to do it. And that he couldn't have known if they were able to do it in the first place. That's what made it so harmful.
I mean, did he not like, eventually like have like a big full discuss like literally the same day as like your panel, like he had another big
Which I think was
thing
also inadequate.
that what what is your threshold for adequacy? I guess like
I don't know I don't know that this is something that's easily quantifiable, but clearly, like if you bring a person on and you don't feel capable of doing the things yourself,
I you're talking about it like a like weird intention stuff and I don't know, like a very specific part of the thing, but like I don't like
it came out
do
of his
you
own
think that
mouth.
anyone do you think that anyone listening to that, like the first couple conversations with her, like walked away thinking that like there was something inherently wrong with black men?
I would imagine so. I would imagine some of those people also shared some of those same biases, and so therefore, hearing that stuff come from that black woman was incredibly validating. The same way that people listen to the insanity of Jesse Lee Peterson.
Okay, and like if Destiny dismantled and like
But he didn't. He steel manned.
sure. I mean, like, have you? Oh yeah, sorry. We're only talking about those specific conversations. We can't talk about anything that happened after. If like he's at all like refuted those sorts of points and like been able to contest like similar assertions. Um, sorry. I have a pivot here. How do you feel about Fresh and Fit?
Fresh and fit. Not a fan.
Yeah. Do you think they are doing harm to the black community?
I think they're just doing harm towards women and men. I think they're doing just harm in general. I don't know that it's just specifically targeted and aimed at the black community. I've heard some harmful things that Myron has specifically said about the black community, sure. So I would say those specific things will be harmful towards the black community. But I don't think that's the primary goal of his platform. I think the primary goal of his platform is young men, whom I think he's incredibly harmful to.
I do you think, given that Fresh and Fit's audience is like disproportionately black,
Is it?
um,
I don't know what his audience is.
I mean, compared to like literally any online community ever, yeah, I'm pretty sure like
Do
it's
you
a
have the
like
numbers? How would we know?
shit, sorry, I did have the, I'm pretty sure. I mean like it's not anything great like I don't know, it's like 20% in 80, like 20% black, but like that percentage is a lot for the internet.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
shit, yeah, I don't think
all right. So
or
twenty
sorry,
percent of
I
his audience
actually
is black. Again, it's really hard for me to sit there and label it as specifically harmful to the black community when 80% of his community is non-black. But what I would say that yeah, and I mean obviously even the disproportionate rates, right? Like it doesn't seem like it's that crazy. So yeah, I think ultimately, I think I would probably label it as generally harmful content, but I wouldn't aim it as something that's specifically targeted at black people, considering the small portion of his content, of his stuff that focuses on race. I don't think that's the primary like aim of his content, or the primary recipients are a specific race either.
well, sure. Well, I mean, if he's specifically giving harmful advice to like disproportionately black men, like doesn't that like kind of carry with it
I feel
like
like I
kind
just
of
answered
racist
that.
undertone? Or I mean, I don't feel like you you actually did. Like I feel like you talked around it. I don't know. I'm sorry. One more time. I'm dumb maybe.
So again, considering the fact that like literally 80% of his audience is not black, and so then like to just look at it and say, like just a very small portion is, I mean, like it's slightly disproportionately black, but obviously the vast majority of his audience is not black, and considering race isn't the center of his content, then no, to me, I don't feel like it's particularly anti-black or racist. I just think it's harmful content in general.
I kind of feel like this is inconsistent with like I don't know, if there was a law put into place that disproportionately affected like black people over white people, but like by absolute numbers instead of per capita, it affected more white people. Like, do you think I don't know, is there anti-blackness in that law?
It would depend on the degree of
Yeah, I'm there's a
disproportionality.
significant there's like a measurable 40% difference in like wow, like
Yeah, so
these
if there's
people are
like a
going to
really
jail like crazy.
crazy, if there's a really crazy degree of disproportionality, then yeah, I would probably say, and yeah, then I would say that it's probably that way. But I don't
Yeah,
think that
but
there's a crazy degree of disproportionality from 13% to 20%, and with 80% of it being not black.
do you I- so like black people make up like 13%, so like you get to
Mhm.
like 20% is close to double of like a normal population, and like also on top of like like communities like Destiny's are like 90 some percent white,
All right, listen,
so
man.
like they're
I've really
not represented.
explained it. I disagree. I don't think that it's and
Okay,
again, given that race isn't one of the primary focuses, nor is it insanely disproportionate enough for me to make that assertion, I don't believe that it's racism.
so it needs to be what like more than 50%
I
black
don't have a
audience
very
to like
specific number, but this just doesn't pass the threshold.
I I don't. Okay, but but a law that disproportionately affects black people, but affects an absolute, like a larger absolute number of white people, is also racist. Like even
It
though it,
depends on the degree of proportionality.
can you qualify that a little bit more?
In other words, if you have something like 13% of the population making up 50% of the prison population, and we start to see those sorts of things, then I would say probably that's a little bit more systemically racist than maybe if it was 13% of the population and only 15%, right? For example, in prisons right now, Hispanic people make up 18% of the population in the United States, but only 19% of the prison population. So I wouldn't say that criminal justice and prison and imprisonment is very systemically racist towards Hispanic men. It seems really more or less kind of similar. 18% to 19% is that not that high? But
Well,
obviously,
isn't
but
aren't
obviously a
Hispanic
higher
people at a higher
degree,
risk of getting deported?
obviously a higher degree of disproportionality would probably be something that would be significantly more like that I'd be willing to call systemically racist. But this just isn't it.
I'm not talking about systemic racism. I'm talking about anti-blackness. Sorry, I don't know if I.
Anti-blackness and racism have God knows how much overlap. Don't you agree?
I mean, sure. It seems weird to like have a specific word for a very illy defined like.
It's not very illy defined. You can look it up yourself. You can find these definitions within the dictionary, and furthermore, I think that it gets very specific when you start talking about anti-blackness. It's a specific type of racism because racism can be against other races. You can have racism towards Asians, racism towards Hispanics, racism towards white people, racism towards black people, etc. So then, if that's the case, then we should probably be able to define anti-blackness as a specific racism towards black people. So there's obviously going to be significant overlaps, right?
Yeah, yeah, fair. In the same way that like misand noir is a. Oh, sorry, that's really hard to say. Nah, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
you
that's why
convinced
these
me.
two things are very, very different. And so for me, I don't feel like Fresh and Fit is necessarily anti black because it seems like I don't even think that the majority of things they're talking about are about black women. I think in reality, their stuff just happens to be particularly misogynistic. I don't even think it's misogynoir. So no, I don't really view their content as being particularly harmful towards women. I mean,
I mean, I
towards
feel.
men. I think it's harmful towards their young audience that I think are incredibly young and are sucking up this content and like whatever. Like I think that's problematic. I would say a person like Kevin Samuels, he would be a person that would be particularly more harmful towards black people because obviously the majority of his audience was black. So then in that case, then I think that would be harmful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, don't know. I feel like the impact of Fresh and Fit is like, I don't know, like it's not intentionally like, I don't know. They just happen to talk about a lot of things that disproportionately affect like black women, where it's just like, like whatever, once you reach a certain age, or if like you're a single mom, or like, I don't know, a lot of the qualifiers they give for like, like who's like a good partner are like, you know things that, you know disproportionately uh, exclude like black women. Um, and I guess, yeah, I feel like the consequence of Fresh and Fit, or like the intention of Fresh and Fit, like even if it's not centered around race, like what it's having, and I don't know, it's being very damaging to black relationships, and like, I don't know, like that's sort of like, I don't know, it's almost like a not cultural genocide, but like, I don't know, like a cultural genocide of just like I don't know, kind of trying to erase that. That makes sense.
Sure. I mean, I hear you. I mean, again, I really do disagree. And I mean, I have feel like I've tried my best to engage with this, but I'm still trying to wonder how this goes back to the original thing that we were talking about. Is
Sure.
this
Yeah.
completely
Sorry.
unrelated?
Yeah. Sorry. I keep forgetting that like we have a very specific boundary on like
No,
these
it
two
doesn't have to be a very.
conversations, and anything
It doesn't
outside
have
of
to be
that is
very
like,
specific. It doesn't have to be very specific. But are you saying that this is completely unrelated? Because if that's the case, then we can engage there. But there isn't much to engage there because I've already kind of really soundly put out my position. But or is this completely unrelated?
I guess I don't know. It's something I felt was kind of parallel, and like, yeah, I get that like you'd, yeah,
Oh, so then if
your
that's the
answer has
case,
not
then you could
changed.
explain to me how it's parallel then. Because like right now, I don't see how these things are necessarily connected.
Um, I I mean, I feel like if you want to accuse Destiny of anti-blackness, Fresh and Fit is deserving of a similar level of condemnation, like given like the end product, like, or like the results of their content.
Do
And
you
I guess
understand?
especially so that like, given that like Destiny continues to, move forward and like advocate for. I mean, as he has in the past, as he was doing in the conversation, and as he will continue to do, and like advocate for, like, like the black community, and like support them in like issues that are facing their communities.
Do you understand the stark distinction between these two contents, where one is literally focused on race and racism, whereas the other one is just focused on anti-women? Why I would probably call Destiny's experience or Destiny's content, that specific piece of content, anti-black as opposed to Fresh and Fit. Fresh and Fit don't bring only black women on or just discuss black racialized dating issues. They don't typically. What they're doing is just talking about women and men, whereas Destiny brought on a person specifically to discuss black men, and specifically black dating and black male history, or just black history in general. So if that's the case, then it's a lot easier for me to label this as anti-black, considering that was the point and purpose of the content that he was creating.
You think his intention with the content was to be anti-black? Like you think
No,
he's done
no.
all of that stuff before, and like has like debated race realist, and like now he's just like, fuck it, like fuck black people, I guess.
No, I think what his intention was just to make content that he thought would be attractive and to start appealing towards a black audience, and I think he did so in a harmful way.
Do you not think that like the points that Analicia has like are not even worth discussion? Like, I get that like her whole like position is gross, like, yes, but like, like if she's able to convince other people, like I want to figure out how to like battle her, and like like de-radicalize people that like she's like, been able to get to or convince. Yeah, sorry.
I think it's worth discussion as long as you adequately push back against all of the nonsense that's being spewed, and I don't think that Destiny did that, nor do I think the people that preceded me did it.
I mean, what do you think wasn't pushed back enough?
All
Or
of
like,
it. Any of it.
all, yeah,
I'm saying that as
so
broadly as I
literally
can.
nothing.
Literally the vast, vast, vast majority of it. Aside from going through the individual conversation and litigating, I mean, and relitigating it all, I would say easily 90% of it was not adequately pushed back before I got there.
Yeah, I guess I'd be curious on how you quantified that. Just like, yep, just like broadly all of it. Like, you don't
Yeah,
feel
the
like it was
vast
adequately
majority, the vast majority of people were not able to push back.
Yeah.
They just got
And then
personal.
you got there, and then you pushed back, and then that wasn't enough, right?
Well, it should have been enough, but then Destiny started validating the things that she was saying by literally telling her, yeah, he was just coping. Like a lot of the arguments and stuff they were making weren't actually addressing your points and so on and so forth.
No. That was about a very specific argument. Okay. Like
It was more
I'm
than one
like
time that he said something to that effect.
yeah, like he, like made the conversation more difficult to like it was already a difficult conversation, right? Like this is a
And then he threw in grenades in the middle of the conversations, what he called grenades, specifically like that were more bolstering towards her point.
yeah,
And then as
like
I
did you
argued
not
against those
adequately
things,
respond?
and then as I adequately responded to those things, he made a facial expression as if that my answer wasn't good.
Okay. Like did he I mean, was that the thing he said you were coping about, or like was that just like a
He did it
like
multiple
I don't know.
times.
Yeah, sure. Like, I mean, like your entire opinion about like his attitude and intentions and like state of mind are based off of the facial expressions that you saw in the moment.
That
Like that's your
concomitantly
whole
with,
basis.
if that was my whole basis, then I wouldn't have just mentioned the other things that I already just voiced to you. How
Yeah,
can you be reductive?
no,
How
no.
can you be reductive to label it as just his facial expression when I also point out to you that he's literally said out of his mouth, one, that I can't defend against those things. Two, still manned her by saying, yeah, I guess you were right. Three, also made the statement that, yeah, he was just coping, etc., and brought her back onto the stream, right? So, and failed to mention when he read the studies that she provided to him because she wouldn't give them to me, hey, by the way, this study is completely useless and doesn't actually support your point. Instead, he said it to his chat, oh, yeah, this study is effing useless, and then just continued on with the conversation and then began throwing grenades in order to bolster her point.
Sure. Did you not adequately push back?
I just voiced to you multiple times during this conversation that, yes,
No,
I
no, no,
believe
no.
I adequately
I'm
pushed
sorry.
back.
You talk for a while, and it's like hard for me to like I don't know. Like there's just a lot of like so like like yes, like Destiny is trying to like help get us to like the best defeat or counter argument to what this like
You can be charitable to him if you
hateful
would like to. I disagree.
what do you not want the best arguments against Analicia?
I don't believe that that was his goal.
You I, that's preposterous. Like
Okay.
I mean, hey, like I guess if you just want to go off of that conversation and your feelings about his facial expressions, and if you think the pushback was adequate, but like he's gone on to continue to advocate for Black people like he has in the past, and like I don't think it's fair to like call him like harboring egregious amounts of anti-Black sentiment or racist or like I don't know. In the grand scheme of things, like in terms of who I want as an ally, it's not fucking Nazis or Klansmen. Like it's even if he's problematic, like Steven, like because he can.
That's cool. You want Steven as an ally to help fight anti-blackness. That's cool.
Yeah,
Didn't work with him. I don't.
yeah. I'm saying that like you're losing out on doing good to the for the Black community.
If I have to
Like
subject myself to his disrespect in order to get that allyship, then it's not true alliance.
I don't think you have to subject yourself to disrespect.
He's
Like
disrespected me almost every time we've interacted.
I mean, you've also been pretty disrespectful here and there.
Okay, you can say so if you would like. I disagree.
I mean, you can also say that.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's where we
you
disagree.
can say that he's been. I mean, sure.
Yeah. It's
I
just,
guess.
I'm
Yeah,
the
sorry.
person that encountered these conversations, and so then I get to make the choice for myself about whether or not I want to interact with a disrespectful person and whether or not
Yeah.
they would be beneficial. And I don't think that he would be beneficial.
Sure. Yeah. I guess I feel like it sucks that you feel that way. But that's okay. Like yeah. Like I don't. Whatever. I'm not trying to infringe on your agency. I was just trying to. Yeah. I don't know. whatever. I feel like best case scenario, you could use Steven to further your own agenda for the black community, and like,
That would feel
I don't know.
morally wrong to me.
Um, why?
Because I don't think that I should be just using someone else to further my own aims. I think that that's manipulate. I think that's exploitation, and I don't want to do that.
I mean, yeah, I suppose. I guess I don't know.
You
Sorry.
suppose, by definition, it's exploitation, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, by your definition of
By
exploitation,
that was
I guess.
Merriam-Webster, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, that guy's a cuck. Sorry, I don't know if I can. Sorry, I don't know if
Who's a
that's an
cuck?
okay word here. Merriam and Webster, or whatever stepchild they had. I guess like I'm trying to have a conversation and get like a functional definition of like how can I apply this, and you're just like, yeah, someone who uses someone else via manipulation for maybe their own gain sometimes. Like I don't know, it's very vague to me. It's not very robust. Like I don't feel like I could take that like your definition and be given a scenario and be able to predict whether or not you think it's exploitation. Um, with like that criteria, I guess. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't. I'm telling you that I subscribe to the literal dictionary definition, and you're saying that you can't use that definition to basically assess whether or not it's something I would think is exploitative for yourself? This is crazy.
I'm sorry. So you believe that exploitation is an objectively like real thing outside of like human perception, or like what?
It's obviously going to be
Um,
based on perception, because it's almost impossible
okay,
to
so
know the
then why the
intentions of another
fuck are you
individual.
quoting Merriam-Webster at me and saying like, wait, you don't get this, you goof, like what,
I
like
don't.
you can't, you like this isn't functional for you.
Hey, how long have you been part of DGG?
I think like uh almost, or well, like 2.5 years, I think ish.
Were you like this before you joined there? That's a mean thing. I'm just
Yeah,
being a douchebag at this point. I think I've checked out of the conversation because I wanted to start
no,
taking shots, and I don't need to do that.
for sure.
Um,
I'm super cool with that. Like I mean, whatever. Like I'm cool with banter. I'm not fragile.
I
But yeah,
respect that
I mean,
about you,
whatever.
but
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
very much more to go here. I'm kind of lost at this point, or rather, I think I am kind of checked out. Do you have any other like major points that you wanted to go through?
Um, I guess yeah. I don't know. Whatever. I wanted to shoot my shot on like maybe together with your powers combined, and a little bit of being problematic. Like something better could be done. But whatever. If you're against that, that's you.
I
Um,
appreciate your effort, man.
Never.
Unfortunately, I feel personally disrespected by Steven on countless occasions. I've demonstrated all of those, or I've demonstrated a couple of them. I do, I eventually I'll probably expound a little bit more on some of the disrespect that he's done. It's just like right now I just have been focused on life and other things, so I just haven't really felt motivated to do so. But I think it's very apparent from the conversations that we've had that he's been incredibly disrespectful to me on countless occasions. And so because of that, I don't feel the need to interact with him.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I can see that. Yeah, I feel like y'all have been kind of clashing like over time. Like I don't know, kind of oscillates
I
between like.
wish you could show me the disrespect to Steven, because during those disrespect, there was a time when I was a humongous fan of his, and I showed incredible amounts of deference, despite blatant, egregious disrespect to my freaking face, while I'm sitting here and showing this man deference, and he couldn't return the favor. If you feel like I've been as disrespectful to Steven as is to me, I would beg you. You're a man that likes to take notes. Go ahead and rewatch those conversations, and you find me the instances where I was nearly 1/10 as disrespectful as he was to me. Do so, and I'll talk to you again.
For sure. Yeah.
Or you can always just send me a text message and say, you know what, I was wrong. He was really disrespectful to you, and you were not nearly as disrespectful as him. You can do that. Either one.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, off the top of the head, I don't know. I feel like it's. I don't know. Whatever.
Do you
Actually,
wait?
never
Do you
mind. I
have
don't
one
know.
off the top of your head?
No,
Literally
no.
any? Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay.
No. Or I guess like I don't know. I feel like I don't know, like calling him racist and stuff and implying that like.
Do you understand that Destiny called me racist?
I mean, do you understand how someone could have maybe interpreted your statements as racist?
I'm
Like,
not
I
having
don't
this
like.
conversation. You're right. I got it. Hey, listen, you tried, man. You tried, and I appreciate the
Oh,
conversation. I don't have any more to give here, bro. I'm sorry.
all right,
I'm
for sure.
getting I'm
That's
getting
all
to
right.
my limit.
Yeah. All right. Well, sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. I hope you have a good rest of your night. It was really cool to chat. I hope uh, everything goes well for you.
Thank you. I hope same for you, man. Peace out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, take care.
A few moments later.
I guess it's hard for me. I personally experience these conversations with Destiny. I know who Destiny has been to me. So for me, I don't have the ability, I don't think, or the willingness to be as charitable, because in the beginning I did. It's crazy to me that I've been being called racist by literally hundreds of people. I've had my channel attacked and mass reported. I've had to deal with people literally going to unrelated content and leaving comments about Destiny and all of the nonsense that I've had to endure because he started calling me racist. And when I called him out on it, he had laughed about it and admitted to it. And that the only way I could get any semblance of respect from this man was to rent out a studio, bring him to a dang conversation where we talked face to face, and that was the first and only time he's ever shown any deference whatsoever. That's to sit there and then complain about me referring to him as being or having anti-blackness by sitting there and bringing a vile anti-black racist woman onto his channel to talk and say all of this nonsense and then refusing to push back, I think is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to provide the conversation for you. I'll leave it in the comments. You watch that dang video and you listen to the disgustingness that she was spewing, and then you tell me that I'm just coping. And then if you can't tell me that I'm just coping, then you explain to me how Destiny could, because he did. And if you believe that race isn't an essential component in actually defending these types of arguments, then you explain to me why Destiny failed to do so or refused to do so, because he didn't do it. And so the fact of the matter was, I considered that to be incredibly pernicious towards the black community. Destiny's audience is primarily white. When you have a black person claiming to be the authority on a subject, spewing all this nonsense, and the arbiter, the person who's actually the streamer, who you look forward to for information like that, when that person refuses to even do their job of moderating or mitigating the harm that this person was spewing, I think that that can normalize some of the implicit biases within some of the minds of some of his streamers. I mean, some of his parishioners who are all white. I think it was disgusting behavior. And then when you start looking at that, and I started revisiting all of the racist or harmful things that Destiny has done over the years, right? And you stop having on this charity-filled lens, and you start saying, let's evaluate this person for all of the harm that they're doing, then you start to see them a little bit differently. And that's what I did with Destiny. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to live my life. The sun doesn't rise and set on that nigga. And I think ultimately I looked and I evaluated all the things that he's done, and I determined that this is just not somebody who's beneficial for me, so I don't want to interact with him. I did originally reach out to Destiny and I asked him to speak, and he was being kind of dodgy in that thing, and then he started going on and upping his harm when he started wearing a kufi hat and labeling his stream the Destiny stream for jobs and freedom, basically making light of the March on Washington for jobs and freedom, which I was the one that informed that was the actual official title of that thing. It seemed like it was just more passive aggressive disrespect, and I just refused to be disrespected by that nigga. So that's why I don't want to interact with him. DGG obviously will never let that die on a regular basis. You can look at my YouTube comments. You'll still see people saying stuff like, yo, man, when are you going to make the anti-Destiny manifesto? Matter of fact, this conversation started based off of that. Let me just read one sentence to you so you can understand exactly what the freak I'm talking about. The way me and this person even engaged, it started with a, did you cancel the Destiny's exploiting black people for money because he's secretly racist manifesto? I plan on making a manifesto, but you can't make a manifesto just about one person. That wouldn't be a manifesto, that would be a hit piece. But that's the way this conversation started. And so many people keep saying, when's the Destiny manifesto? I'll never make a manifesto about Destiny because he's not important enough to me that I would want to make an entire manifesto about that nigga. For what? What I am doing, I am working on my own manifesto for my own views and my own whatever and my own experience. And part of that is going to probably involve Destiny because some of my experiences do involve him. Some of my experiences online do involve him. Obviously, if I'm going to be doing Twitch politics online, there's no way to avoid the idea that Destiny would be involved in some way, especially back before he got banned off of Twitch. So yes, he will probably be featured in it. It will not be centered around him. He's not important enough in my life.
Escape and float into my